Feeling thirsty for knowledge? Hackers on the Rocks is the podcast that mixes refreshing conversation with potent cybersecurity insights. Serving up these insights with a twist, we pair a different software vulnerability with a refreshing cocktail recipe each episode. All right, hello world and greetings all around. Today, our guest goes by Adam. I met Adam at ThoughtCon. You know the guy who runs around in a trench coat selling pocket watches? That was my first impression of Adam. But since then, we've had a few really interesting conversations, and I invited him to be a guest. So before we get onto that main portion, our opening segment, Get Handle Information, Adam, welcome to the show. Tell everyone what we're drinking today.
Yeah, we got Rusty Nail. And the reason I picked this drink is actually goes back to DerbyCon. I went to DerbyCon many years ago when it was still existent, and it's in Louisville. So of course we went out to have a bourbon tasting, and we had a blind taste test, and 4 different bourbons, little tiny taster, and the one that really stood out was Four Roses. Like everyone at the table all agreed that this is the one. Okay, out of the 4. And so now I have this great information, right? I know a great bourbon. So what's next? Well, I find a drink to make with a great bourbon. And so that's how I came upon the Rusty Nail. And I know it's supposed to be Scotch, and someone will call me a heathen for using bourbon, but you know what? I'll do me.
Yeah. So all right. So let's do the Adam version of the Rusty Nail. So how did you make your Rusty Nail?
So it's a 2-ingredient drink. It's a half shot of Drambuie, which is its own thing, and then a shot and a half of Scotch, or in my case, bourbon, over the rocks, and yeah.
Yeah, so I will say I was researching this, and the original. To your point, you are a heathen, of course. Drambuie itself is Scotch that's been sweetened with honeys and sugars and stuff, and so really, we're just drinking Scotch with Scotch, right? That's how this is supposed to happen?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, all right.
You got it.
I dig it. I'm proud. It's the middle of the day when we're recording this, so I can't go wrong with a huge glass of whiskey with sweet whiskey. So yeah, raise a glass, man. Cheers.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Cheers.
Yeah. Oh. I love your glass, by the way. I feel like that is. I wouldn't have pegged that as your. This is delicious, by the way. Let's start with that. This is a very good drink. I can do this. Yeah. Okay. This is
like gin. It's a good drink.
No, in the last few episodes we've done have been gin episodes, and I've commented on both how much I hate gin. But no, this is like an introduction to whiskey, which can have a bite to it, and I think the Drambuie really takes that out. So this becomes a smooth drink that will get a lot of people into trouble. I like it.
Yeah. You get done with the first one, you're like, oh, that's pretty good. Maybe we'll have another. You're like, oh, okay.
So while we are imbibing in these not so small glasses, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the research community.
Yeah, so I've been a tech researcher for about 15 years. I was a developer before that, working for a mortgage firm, writing software that handled that kind of stuff, and then moved into cybersecurity. Most recently, I was at Admound application security practice at Grimm. Left there a couple years ago, and now I am an open source hardware and software developer. So, yeah.
Has that transition been hard, going from, say, like a good research firm, like corporate brands? Grimm is pretty well known to. I mean, it's very rare to hear full-time open source developer like that. I feel like that's got to be very. I mean, we could do a whole episode on that alone. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, I'm living off my savings. It's not like this is paying the bills by any means, but I'm doing what I love, and it is a blast. I get to do everything at my pace instead of like the rush of normal business. And I still get to do as much security research as I want because, it's my choice.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I guess maybe before we go into our main segment, I'd love to just kind of discuss this a little bit further, because one thing that comes up a lot is, corporations increasingly seem to be using open source software, and from time to time, all software is going to have some kind of a flaw in it. And so I'm curious, as a member of the producing side of this software, like, how do you feel? Like, what happens when there's a security implication? Like, how responsible do you feel? How timely do you need to get in front of things? Because on the one hand, like, you're a volunteer, right? It's, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. There's definitely a tight balance there between like how fast do you go and do you burn yourself out? Because a lot of open source projects are like one or two people, and they frequently have a day job or family or other commitments that take up a bunch of their time. So when some bug report comes in, it can be hard to just drop everything and deal with it. But I love the security research side of things. So if someone came to me and said, "Hey, your password manager has a vulnerability in it. Here are the details," I would come. I would be like, "All right, cool. Like, I am going to pretty much drop everything like within a day, like within probably hours, but within a day, I would drop everything and try and verify that this is actually true. What is the impact? Does the thing have to be unlocked? What are all the constraints? Like, it's like, oh, I found it on the ground and I can just unlock everything. Like, that'd be really bad. I don't know how that would possibly happen since it's encrypted at rest and there's no key material on the device. But you know, uh, like, so then I basically figure out like, okay, is this like, oh, when I click this one button, it crashes. I'm like, okay, well, don't click that button. Like, it's not a super urgent thing, right? But unless you just can't use it, like if that button is unlock the device, right?
I think a
Um,
lot of good things happen from crashes. I don't know.
yeah,
This is the
yeah,
wrong podcast to say that on, but I appreciate it. Well, let's tease. Since you've mentioned password managers and whatnot, let's pause for a quick word from our sponsors, and we'll pick up that thread when we come back.
cool.
This episode is brought to us by Squadra Ventures, a venture capital firm that invests in early stage cyber and national security technology companies. By applying a growth stage mindset at the seed stage and a commitment to building alongside entrepreneurs, Squadra's team of former founders and operators provide transformational support to startup leaders in the complex dual use technology ecosystem. For entrepreneurs and founders in our audience, connect with them at squadra.vc. All right, welcome back. In our main segment, the distillery, Adam will. Let's turn the floor over to you, man. Adam, what are we talking about today?
So we're going to be talking about threat modeling.
Yeah, so I think using before we went into the break, we talked a little bit about password managers and how not all things are threats. So I guess maybe let's start at the very beginning. Like, what does threat modeling mean? I've heard that phrase, but I mean, I'd like a good definition out of that.
Yeah, so it's basically trying to figure out what threats you're trying to protect against and just make sure you have all your bases covered. So I think a good way to work into it is by example. And that would be I can give the example of how I got into being an open source hardware developer. Um,
Yeah.
so I make these little guys, little USB devices. It's not a USB thumb drive. I know it looks like one, but it's a hardware device, and it's not a passkey either. It's yet another thing. And so I got this on Crowd Supply years ago, and it just kind of sat on the shelf for a while. And then, like, eventually, I was like, well, I've never actually used that. Let's play around with it. Like, and wait, why do I even need this? Why did I buy this? Like, I want to support an open source hardware developer, but
Huh.
what was the like? What problem is it trying to solve? And so I'm like, well, I have a software password manager on my desktop here, and that seems to work fine. Why upgrade? And so I looked into like if someone compromised your computer just at a user level, not as root, but as a normal user, and it you got your password database, but that's encrypted. It's not like a text file, right? And so you would think, okay, well, as long as they're not root, they're not going to be able to log keystrokes. And if they can't log keystrokes, I should be good, right? Like, and the answer is no, no, not at all. Um, you're you're completely hosed with all the password managers that run on a desktop.
So you're laughing. I feel like that's self-intuitive to you, but explain why not? Because I think you just gave a really good example, right? If I am a limited user and so now nothing can hook my keystrokes, and I'm using some kind of encrypted file on my
Yeah,
hard drive, like why am I still? Why is that not good enough?
yeah. So there's a whole bunch of different ways you can do it. As it turns out, one is just if you're using X11, other user processes can just see the keyboard. It's just something that's available by design. If you're using Wayland, they've closed that so that not every program can see every keystroke. However, there are other ways you could use LD preload, and I have a little demo that does that, where basically, so we can get into the details of LD preload, but basically it lets the attacker inject their code into a process if they can set this LD preload variable and get their shared object in there, their DLL, or well, not a DLL, but like a DLL for Windows.
On Linux, yeah, I got you. All
Yeah.
right. So, okay. So, but again, everything, all right, let me back up, right? Since everything you're saying. So, if I understand correctly, right, X11 and LD Preload, these are Linux based systems. Not everyone's using Linux, right? Is it different on different operating systems, or
It,
is the thought process kind of the same?
it is a little bit different, but the thought process is still kind of the same. LD Preload also works on Mac OS. For Windows people, there's DLL injection techniques that are the basically the same thing. It's just there are different mechanisms to get the attacker's DLL in there, and that's it's going to depend on this particular application and things like that. And then there's also other avenues. So if you don't want to use LD preload, you can use a debugger. So WinDebug or ptrace on Linux or Mac. And so that will do, again, the same thing, getting the attacker's code into the userland process. At that point, it can hook functions. It can like see everything that process can see, which I mean, that process is your password manager, and your password manager obviously has access to all your passwords. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to serve them up when you want them. And so now the attacker has access to all these things.
All right, and so maybe taking it back to the main topic, if you define threat modeling as trying to figure out what threats you're trying to protect against, like I am I am not worried about somebody using a maybe a debugger on a system if the debugger is not present, right? So like I guess how do we then define, like on one hand I can totally see, hey, I want to stop all bad guys all the time because that makes sense, but on the other side, it sounds like with threat modeling you're trying to prioritize who the likely attacker may be. And is that sound right? Because all the stuff that you just mentioned sounds like Mission Impossible to me, where they're going to bring along a debugger that may or may not be present on my system, and then run it without my knowledge, and then use that to hook certain things. And that sounds very hard to do. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I guess
Yeah.
maybe kind of turning the microphone back over to you. Like, how does a threat modeler, how does one think about this in terms of like overall, risk exposure?
And so the first thing you want to think about is what you're trying to protect. So if you're trying to protect your backups, your photos, or your videos, or access to your bank account, like you have all these different things that you don't want other people to have. And so that's going to be number one. And then number two is who you're protecting them from. Maybe if your significant other gets a hold of your video collection, you're like, it's no big deal. Like, I didn't really want them to like be able to borrow any of my movies anytime I want, but like, not a big deal. So not going to prioritize that. And it is all about prioritization, because protecting everything all the time is how people get burnout. And then they start with things that aren't important. And meanwhile, while they're doing that, that's a period of time that there are other things that are more important, are more exposed. So you want to take care of the most important things first, and threat modeling is basically designed to try and help you do that.
So can you walk us through what that looks like? Like how does one go through the process of determining what's most important?
Yeah, so that's a very personal decision, but like we'll just use passwords for an example because everybody has passwords to things and they want them to be safe. And so that goes pretty much without saying. And then you think about who your attackers are. You've got like random people on the internet, like maybe you're an internet service provider or anyone who's compromised your internet service provider. And so for that, we use TLS, and TLS is pretty good. That'll usually take care of most of those threats if it's in use. Not all protocols use it, so that can be an issue. And you want to think about that. Another thing that like activists in particular might want to think about is their identity. Like they need to remain anonymous or pseudonymous, and so that's something that not everybody is going to say like, oh, it's really important that nobody knows what my name is. But for some people, it is important. So that's where it's kind of personalized for each person. And then you get your attackers, and you need to make some assumptions about what privileges they have. So, for example, your internet service provider can see all of your network traffic. That's a fact. You could say, look, I install software on this machine that I don't know the person who wrote it. Like maybe it's open source, maybe it's some random npm package that I ran, whatever. And you have no reason to trust the developers. Even if you do think that they're good people and they're doing their best, they still might have vulnerabilities themselves. So you need to kind of account for that. Otherwise, you're going to be sad.
Yeah, so I guess maybe like a thought process that I'm starting to kind of mull through is, you started the show with what I believe is just a hardware key manager, a password manager, right? That was the
Yep.
dongle that you shared, and so that, if I'm following you correctly, like having a hardware token makes it maybe harder for those remote unknown bad guys. But to your point, it may make it easier for a spouse or a partner to just grab the thing and either have access or run away with it, which would mean you would physically lose access to all of that data. And so if I'm hearing you correctly, then threat modeling is really more a series of like pros and cons over like which thing do I want to defend against because I can't defend all things? Is that kind of a
That's pretty much it. So with the password manager, you need to know the password to unlock it. So if your spouse gets a hold of it or you lose it on the street, no one's going to be able to get access to it. But yeah, it is all about having that controlled environment. So all of the password decryption happens on this device. There is a desktop client that you use to tell it which password you want, but it will not, like, the only thing that leaves the device is the one password that you requested, or the username, or credit card number, or whatever. And you have to press the button. So a pure software attack that takes over your entire computer as root isn't going to be able to press the button. Like your device will start blinking and it'll be like, well, I guess someone's trying to access my password manager. It's not me. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, well, yeah, I guess something to look into then, because there's a problem.
Yeah, maybe going the other direction, right? I feel like a device like that is really good for a fairly tech savvy individual. But I was also see, like, maybe once a year you hear the discussions or you see it on social media of people being like, um, the books that they sell at your bookstore of like jot down your passwords,
Mm-hmm.
and they put in a spiral, like an actual pen and paper spiral binder, and
Yeah,
then people are always like, why would you ever write down your passwords? And everyone else is
right.
like, well, I guess where do you fall on the line on that? Like, how does one model out the threat on that?
Yeah, so that's a great example of like if you're not worried about anyone who has physical access to your stuff being able to log into all your accounts, then writing them down in pen and paper is fine. Like that's going to protect great against your ISP. It's going to protect great against people in other countries. Like if they're not physically there, that's a constraint that you're putting on the attackers, basically. And it is never in a computer to be stolen, which is great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and some people, that's the level of security that they're looking for. They're like, you know what? I know how this works. I am really confident that nobody who doesn't get access to my folder, with all my passwords, will be able to log into all my accounts. Like maybe they'll steal one or here or there, account takeovers, but like as far as like wholesale, everything's gone. You can be pretty confident in that.
Got
And
it.
it's also nice for like if you die, for example, people can log into your accounts
Yeah.
and get access to stuff. They can decrypt your backups so that they save all those family photos that are irreplaceable. And different people have different values on things. Some people don't care about family photos. Other people, that's really a cherished thing. So
Yeah.
and you,
Continuity planning. I like it.
yeah. So
All right, so we did not do this in our pre-call. So, and I also promised you just before we hit the record button that I wasn't going to set you up. But let's throw the curveball on this because I'm actually having fun with this element. So,
sure.
we can kind of war game this out. Maybe you don't have to take a side if you don't want to, but if you can kind of maybe go through on the spot some like the threat modeling process for, I mean, since you kind of brought it up, like let's start with VPNs, right? Like, how would one determine is a VPN right for me or is it a horrible decision? Like, what does it get me? What does it not actually get me? Like, can we run
Yeah.
through that?
Yeah, that's a good one because that's one that's pitched all the time, right? Use a VPN; it'll keep you safe. It's like, well, it keeps you safe from your internet service provider. They can't see anything other than that you are using a VPN, so they know when you're using the internet. They know how much internet you're using, but they don't know where you're going, and so they're largely blinded from whatever you're doing online. At the same time, it introduces the VPN provider as basically your new ISP. So they can see all the things that you're doing when you're doing them and so on. And you have TLS to protect like the details, but they still know which websites you're accessing, how long you're on there, how frequently you access it, click links, stuff like that. And maybe you don't have a choice on internet providers. Maybe there's only one game in town that has high speed internet for you, in which case, at least with a VPN, you get to choose your masters and you get to choose who's going to be able to oversee what you're doing online. So it's just like you said earlier, there are trade-offs, and if you think about them, and like you're like, it would be better if it was someone outside my country, right, who knows this stuff. Maybe that's the thing that you're going for. In which case, a VPN's great. If you think it's going to stop Google from tracking you, it's not going to happen. Like you're still logging into your account. There's still all the ways that they track you are unaffected by the fact that you're using a VPN.
Fair enough. You want to do another one?
Sure, hit
All
me.
right. Hotel Wi-Fi. I should use or the cafeteria, the coffee shop Wi-Fi. Should I connect or
Okay,
should I not connect?
that's basically the same use case all over again. Like it's just a different internet service provider, um, and it's a little different because you have people who are at the hotel or coffee shop who might be specifically waiting for someone to come by as a victim. So it's a little bit broader than your internet service provider who, maybe you think they're fine, upstanding people, and the coffee shop. There might be some other people on that same AP that are, uh, little malicious or pranksters or what have you.
All right. What about taking your phone to DEF CON?
That one's complicated, especially if you throw in things like I want to make sure that people don't know who I am or where I am.
All
If
right,
you're worried about
so
physical
so
security.
so threat model this out. Like let's build different personas and figure out whether this
Sure.
makes sense or not.
All right, so we've got our assets. Let's say where we are, our physical location. That's going to be one. Um, well, let's just start with that one. Who can see that? Well, your cell phone provider obviously can see that. Is that okay? Probably, maybe not. Um, so you've got that. You've got the data on your phone. I mean, you probably want to keep that private. You'll decide who you want to share it with. And who has access to that? Well, the network operator isn't going to have direct access to it. But if you're connected to the Wi-Fi, you've got other, shady people trying to cause you trouble, just like the coffee shop Wi-Fi, but maybe amped up by an order of magnitude or two. Because people at DEF CON, at least in the olden days, they just hack someone to see if they could, and then like they'd see the person be like panicking, and like, I got you, and so like in the olden days, it wasn't that bad. Now I feel like they would take your days and sell them or something, burn them, and be like this terribleness, but uh, yeah, so you've got that threat, and so if you don't want your or your cell service provider to know where you are. Don't take your phone to DEF CON. Like, full stop. You can keep it in airplane mode, but like if it gets taken out of airplane mode, your battery dies, it reboots, comes back in non-airplane mode, and you didn't realize it. Stuff like that. Like, things can happen, right? For your data, if you're not fully patched, don't take your phone to DEF CON. Don't get it on the Wi-Fi. Don't get it on the cell networks. Just don't. But if you're worried about things at DEF CON, and you're thinking about these securities, it's a good mindset to be in, right? And one of the things that people often fail to recognize is when they leave DEF CON, the threats are the same. Like, there's still bad people trying to do bad things. And how are they going to do it? They're going to do it over the Wi-Fi. They're going to do it over Bluetooth. They're going to do it over GSM, 5G, 4G, things like that. And so I just saw, like, the other day, there was an attack that did not require you to connect to a malicious cell tower, and it would downgrade you from 5G to 4G. And then, of course, all the 4G attacks apply, and they can downgrade you again, or pull other shenanigans. So all those bugs that they fixed in 5G that are just protocol issues where you just can't fix them in 4G, they're all back in play again. So DEF CON is, it's great to get people thinking about these things, and just take that to heart and realize that it's not like people can't pull these same shenanigans when DEF CON's not happening. Like, this is a constant threat.
I love that. I know actually a client of mine many years ago used to make that same joke of like everyone that goes to Vegas for the security conferences with like a Faraday cage. It's, like there's nothing magic about this particular day, time, and place, right?
Yep.
the same risks are available. And if you're worried about somebody like remotely hacking your phone, they're going to remotely hack your phone tomorrow, right? So I appreciate that. I just had a really good flashback to some very positive conversations with some people in my life. So, Adam,
and like,
yeah. Go for
like
it.
you said earlier, it comes down to probability. So that's kind of what you're banking on, but you don't know the probability. I mean, what's the probability that you're going to get a GSM attack today? What percent? How would you know if you were right? Like, this is not a quantifiable thing. Whereas, like, don't connect to Wi-Fi, it does get rid of all the Wi-Fi attacks. There's no like ambiguity there.
It's funny. We did have a previous episode with Stephen Schaefer on EPSS, which I forget what the acronym stands for. It was like exploits predictive scoring system. I'm making that up, but it was some way of trying to define what is the likelihood that a specific bug will be used. And I know that very recently Jerry Gamblin announced that he has an open source project to kind of do the same thing of like, what is the likelihood of an issue? And I think the guys from BitSite did a research talk at this year's I'm going to blank the name VolCon in Raleigh, and they had said that all these external things like the CVSS score is still the most likely indicator. The higher the number, the higher the likelihood. And so you have these competing theories of people trying to predict the predictability. Yeah, predict the predictability. Yeah, that's right. Of likelihood of future compromise on a vulnerability by vulnerability basis. But you're right. I mean, not everything is also going to use a CVE. Like you said, like a downgrade attack may just open you up to eavesdropping, not even necessarily a specific payload. So it's super interesting. Wow. All right. Adam, last call. Where can people go to find out more about you, your work, or anything you mentioned today?
I guess the main site is hacksurbana.org. That's HAX0RBANA.org. It's a portmanteau of Haxor and Urbana, just mashed together. There's a whole story behind that domain too, where we've started a hacker co-housing project in Urbana, Illinois, and so we need a name. So we're like, oh, Hacks Urbana, and so that's what stuck. I'm on think I'm on Mastodon, but I go under a NIM, so we're going to skip that one. I'm not on Twitter anymore. Yeah, most of the social media I'm on, I don't use my name.
Understood.
So
Sounds like you've been threat
um,
modeling. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I kind of just pick a different name for every single service I use because why not? Like, there's no need to tie those together.
No, I appreciate. Well, two things then. I think. Well, first, knowing that you're from the Chicago area, I appreciate us not having a Malort episode. I think
Yeah,
the Scotch with Scotch is a much better representation.
yeah, trying to class the place up.
And yeah, no, thank you. I could use some classing up, so I really appreciate it. You definitely bring the class in this duo here, so I really appreciate it. And I don't know, maybe second. If that is your real name, Adam, that's how I introduced you. And
Hmm.
no, I just appreciate your time.
Yeah,
I learned a lot. This was a good conversation, and thank you for your time.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, cheers.
Cheers.